to speak to you for the next 10 minutes on a new field that's getting more and more attention among people in the business world and among neuroscientists. And this field is called consumer neuroscience or neuromarketing. How can we tell something about people's desires, wishes, and understanding by looking into their brain? And I'm going to start by telling you a little story. One, two. So let me tell you first a little story. And this story is going to be helpful in kind of figuring out the story about neuromarketing and desires. In 2001, Coca-Cola had an idea. Just in a small market in Barcelona, they decided that from now on, the vending machines that sell Diet Coke are going to change the price based on the temperature. Meaning they put in every vending machine a little thermostat that measures the temperature outside. And if the temperature went above 30 degrees, if it became really, really hot outside, the price of the Coke became 3 euros rather than 1 euro. So the price went up with the expense, so the expense of the price went up with the temperature outside. People were outraged. They said, this is crazy. You're charging us more money when it's outside, when it's hot outside, when we're actually more thirsty. You're actually exploiting our thirst. And Coca-Cola said, no, 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 you got it all wrong. It's not that we're charging you more money because you're thirsty and you need more. Actually, when you're thirsty, you enjoy the Coke a lot more. Every time you drink a Coke, when it's cold out, when it's hot outside, you actually enjoy it a lot more. So we're charging you based on your pleasure rather than based on the temperature. We're using the temperature as a proxy to how pleasurable this thing, and this is how we charge it. People were outraged, they didn't like it, and within a few weeks, Coca-Cola had to discard the entire idea and went back to a price that's centered. But let's talk for a second about the idea. We seem outraged when prices change based on something. We don't like the idea of pricing things separately for you than to me. But the reality is we accept it all the time. We have the idea of a show in the matinee costing a little less money than the evening show in a movie theater. We accept the fact that the people that are seniors pay a little less for the bus ticket than people that are younger. Soldiers and kids pay a little less. We accept the fact that maybe an e-book should be cheaper than a hard copy book. We accept the fact that price could be different for different things, but somehow, when it comes to us, we think that we're all the same and prices shouldn't be different. It shouldn't be changed. For instance, the idea of Coca-Cola, of tailoring the price to the temperature, seems outrageous to us, in the same way that we don't think that we should pay differently if we just finished half the portion. We go to a restaurant, we only drink after the drink, we should pay half the price. We don't think that we should pay only based on the size of the plate that we got. We don't think that it should be okay for us to actually pay based on how we enjoyed it. So we had dinner in a restaurant, it wasn't as good as we imagined, so we're going to pay less for that because we didn't enjoy it. And the problem here is that we can't really figure out from people what actually was the experience. We don't know how to measure the experience. This is why we have a problem with kind of tailoring the price to how you enjoyed it. And this is not true anymore, because in the last 5 years, we have an ability to actually learn from your brain how was the experience. We can now look at your brain and know exactly how much did you enjoy the food, how much did you enjoy the drink, how much of the food that you ate was actually what you wanted. And now, prices can make a big difference. Here's an example. In a simple study done by a colleague of ours in SEAD, people came to the lab to drink wine. And they were asked to drink wines from different bottles, taste them, and then rank how tasty the wine is. So they got a $5 bottle, $10 bottle, $30 bottle, $40 up to $90 bottles. 5 bottles of wine ranging from $5 to $90. And what they have to do is take a sip of the wine and then rank it on a scale of 1 to 10, how tasty the wine is. Obviously, you won't be surprised, people found the $90 wine really tasty and the $5 not as much. So prices actually affected how people ranked the wine. But here's the interesting part. When the scientists actually look at people's brains while they were sipping the wine, they noticed that not only is it that you rank the wine based on your price, you're not just saying the wine that was $90 was actually much better, you actually experience the $90 wine is much better. If you look at your brain, there's a center right in the middle of your brain that is the pleasure center. Part of the brain that actually quantifies experiences. When you look at people, when you judge yourself, when they ask you, how was it to be a 4-year-old, you go to this part of your brain, and this is what you ask, how was the experience? This is the part that ranks experiences. If I look at your brain while you take a sip of a bottle of wine, if the wine is $90, this part is going to be very active, telling you this is really tasty. If I give you a $5 one, you're not going to be as pleasured by this thing. So the reality is that the price of the wine affects not just how we rank that, but also how we experience that. And here's the twist in the plot. In this experiment, all 5 glasses of wine were the same wine. The experimenters basically took one bottle of wine, changed the label of the bottle, and gave you the same wine. And not only did you experience that as tastier, you also ranked it as tastier. So if I want you to be happy with your wine, all I have to do is give you a bottle of wine and tell you that it's $90. You're going to enjoy it much more, you're going to experience it much more, and you're going to actually have much more pleasure. And this is, in a way, what marketing does all the time. Many times in our life, we get somehow the package telling us something about the experience itself. So we're not really happy with that. We think that it's a cheating. We think it's a way to kind of use our biases against us. Let's think about it for a second. Let's say you go to a restaurant, to a supermarket, and you want to buy a bottle of wine. Now you come to the shelf and you see a lot of wines. You have to make a choice. How do you make a choice? Turns out people make choices mostly by looking at the spectrum and looking at the middle. So if they go to the shelf and they see that there's $5 wine, $20 wine, and $50 wine, they're going to say, I'm not cheap, I'm not going to get the $5. I'm not too wealthy, I'm not going to get the $20, the $50. I'm going to go for the middle one, the $20 wine. But if I am a seller and I want you to get the $20 wine, all I have to do is now add one more thing on the extremes and actually shift you to biases. So if there's 5, 20, and 50, you're going to go for the 20. If I want to go to 50, I take the 20 out, and I would add 100. So now it's 5, 50, 100, and suddenly the 50 looks like the middle one. Suddenly people are going to choose that. And they're going to say, I made a choice. It was me. I came to the supermarket, I saw all the options, and I chose something. But the reality is that someone created a spectrum for us that delivered the choice that we have to do, made us think that. Here's another example. In the US, there's a chain of supermarkets that's very popular called Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's are one of the top kind of high-end supermarkets that cater to people who actually like good food and healthy food. And Trader Joe's figured out something about how to make you buy more. They realized the following. People know something about prices of things. If I ask you how much does a gallon of milk cost, or bread, or maybe a cup of newspaper or a cup of pasta, you kind of have an idea of what the spectrum is. You're not surely going to have an idea of how much is a specific sauce for pasta going to cost. So what they did is they did the following. For every item that they figured out people actually know the price, roughly, they lower the price. So milk in Trader Joe's is a little cheaper than everyone else. Pasta in Trader Joe's, a little bit cheaper. Bread, a little bit cheaper. And for everything else, 3 times the price. And the reality is the following. You go to this place, you go to the things that you know, you buy them, and you think, okay, it's pretty cheap. I know that the price of this thing should be X, and this is X divided by 2. And then you buy a lot of items. Among those are some items that cost 3 times more, 5 times more. This is how they balance their checkbook, making it such that you experience Trader Joe's as a cheap place, but you actually end up paying a little more. And this goes into the fact that money for us is just a measure of things. We look at the brain, and we look at the world, we kind of use money as a way to quantify the reality, the experience, and the values of the experience that we have. Here's an example. In a study done by a colleague of ours, people were asked the following question. They were told, here's a scenario, and tell us what you're going to do. And you can all try it for yourself. I'm telling you a story. You want to go watch a movie. You buy a ticket for the movie costs $10, so you buy a ticket for $10, you have the ticket in your hand, and you go to the cinema. As you approach the theater, you're about to go in, you look in your pockets, and you just can't find the ticket. Somewhere along the way, on your route from home to the theater, the ticket fell off your pocket and you lost it. How likely are you to now go back to the cashier and buy a new ticket for $10? Turns out people were asked this question, and the numbers range between 60 to 40% of the people are going to, 40-60% said that we're going to actually go home. If we bought a ticket for the theater for $10 and we lost the ticket on the way to the theater, we're just going to give up and we're going to go do something else. We're going to go to the restaurant, we're going to go home, we're going to give up on the ticket because we lost the ticket that we bought. Keep it in mind, and I'll tell you a different story. You didn't buy a ticket to the movie. You just sat at home and you said, I want to go to see a movie. You go to the theater without a ticket, and as you get to the theater, you realize that you lost $10. On the way there, $10 bill fell off your pocket. How likely are you to not buy a ticket right now? People said, what does it have to do with that? I just lost $10. It doesn't matter. I'm going to buy a ticket. I lost $10. It's upsetting, but I lost $10. The reality is, for economists, $10 in the form of a ticket or $10 in the form of a bill are the same. It's $10. If we lost a ticket worth of $10, or if we lost $10, economists say it's the same thing. It's just $10 value. But for us, it's very different. If we lost $10, we already put some of us in this experience. And when we lost it, part of us went with the experience. And we're not going to likely do it again because we lost something. In the same way, money for us is something that's psychological. We think of money as something that we attribute to reality. Here's another example. We also think about money not just absolute values, but also in relative values compared to absolute price. So if I live in an apartment in Los Angeles, and I want to buy watermelon, and watermelon costs, let's say, $3, so I want to buy a bulk of watermelons, and they cost altogether $15. So if I can buy watermelon downstairs, right under my apartment, for $15, I'm pretty happy. But then someone tells me, you know what? You can pay now $15 for 3 watermelons down under your apartment, or you can walk 3 blocks and buy the same watermelons for $10. So you walk 3 blocks and you save $5. And they ask me, how likely are you to do it? I say, oh, that's like a significant discount. $15 down below, $10 3 blocks away. I'm definitely going to make the 3 blocks away to get the same watermelons for a cheaper price. Keep that in mind when I tell you a different option. I'm telling you, right under your apartment is a Ferrari store. You can buy a Ferrari for $1 million right under, or you can walk 3 blocks and buy the same Ferrari for $5 less. How likely are you to go 3 blocks to buy the Ferrari for $5 less? People sometimes say, not as much. It doesn't matter. It's $5. I'm going to buy the Ferrari right here. The reality is that for economists, $5 is $5. It doesn't matter if it's $5 out of 15 or if it's $5 out of $1 million. For them, it's the same thing. It's $5 that you didn't agree to walk 3 blocks for. But for us, it's a very different thing. We look at the $5 as part of an experience. And if it's a Ferrari, we think about it as a very different thing. Because money for us is not just a simple thing. Money is part of an entire experience. And the reality is that because of that, it's really hard for us to know what we want. We know that we have biases. We know that $5 are not the same. We know that $5 in different forms are different. But we don't know how to choose what we want and actually listen to ourselves. Well, the reality is that there's some part of us that does know. It's just buried deep inside. This is our brain. In our brain, there are mechanisms that sit there and evaluate moment-to-moment things. They say, this is $5, this is $10. This person is better than this person. This experience is better than that experience. And we actually use those things all the time to equate things. We just don't know how to access this information. And because of that, we sometimes end up making mistakes. Those are the irrationalities biases. People aren't lying to themselves. They just don't know. We answer questions the way we want to be, rather than the way we are. If I ask you a question about what you want to do in the future, you're probably going to give me an answer and you're going to be confident this is your answer. But this answer comes from a part of the brain that is very small. It's the part that makes decisions only based on information. Here's the example that I always use for that. Pornography and organic food. In surveys done in the US, people were asked, how many of you watch pornography and what are your preferences in pornography? Which one do you like to see? And the reality is that most people in surveys said they never watched that. Only 1 out of 100 people actually said that they watch pornography. Well, if you look at the bandwidth of internet, it turns out that 70% of the bandwidth is pornography. So there's one guy in the world who runs around and watches all the pornography for everyone, consuming 70% of the internet. Or we all do that. But when we come to the survey, we actually answer something else. We answer what we think the surveyor wants to know, what we think we want to be. We answer a question not the way we are, but the way the image of ourselves exists. And it's very hard for people in marketing and in business to work with that customer because the customer gives you answers that are not accurate. Not because they're lying, because they don't know. The flip example of that would be organic food. In Los Angeles, many places, many restaurants, many supermarkets want to open a branch that's going to serve organic food. And organic food is a little pricier. So they first go to a zip code and they survey people in the zip code and said, how likely are you guys to pay a little more money if you open a little branch of a supermarket in your zip code and it's going to be pricier, but it's going to be all organic and healthy? People immediately say, of course, we're going to buy that. That's going to be what we're going to do because we all are into healthy food and organic food. Well, those restaurants open, or those supermarkets open, and they fail within a year. Because somehow, when you come to buy the bread, you say, well, in theory, I'm the guy who buys the bread. I'm the guy who does that. In practice, today I'm going to do something else. We all know that. Every evening we go to sleep, we set the alarm to 6 a.m. in the morning, telling ourselves we're going to wake up, it's going to be me waking up on time, I'm going to be full of energy, I'm going to start doing what I want, and somehow in the morning at 6 a.m., we're not the same person anymore. We wake up, and someone else is that person who wakes up there pressing the snooze button. Snooze button is the ultimate admission to the fact that we're more than one person. We created a world that allows us to work with the biases we have and kind of solve the conflict by having us give ourselves a little more time to think about things. So the reality right now is that more and more businesses realize that there's this problem with customers and with how they make choices. And they solve that by creating a way to not ask you a question anymore, but actually looking into your brain. Neuromarketing is a way by which we bring people to the lab, and instead of asking you, do you watch pornography, how much, which one do you prefer, we're going to show you things on the screen, and we can look right in your brain at the parts of the brain that evaluate things and experience things, and we'll see how much pleasure you derive from the wine that's $90 versus $5. How much how much pleasure do you derive from organic food versus non-organic food? How likely are you to buy this thing versus that thing? How likely are you to choose this thing or that thing? We can actually know something about your choices. And what's nice about that is that those choices are actually accurate. Because when you're confronted with the option, now we actually perform the same way. Now, so this field, neuromarketing, has two advantages. First of all, it allows businesses to actually figure out what people want and give it to them. We figure out what you want and create an environment that allows you to get whatever you want in the best way for you. And also for consumers, it's something that allows consumers to figure out what actually is good for them and make better choices. So it's a win-win situation for both couples. We figure out what we want and we get what we need. This is this field. And now, in this way, neuroscientists are venturing into the field of business, and they allow businesses to set the prices of things perfectly, to figure out the best packaging of things, to figure out how engaging content is in the world of TV. We can actually figure out what's the best ending from a film, or what's the best moment in a game that's going to make people enjoy it the most. How much frustration are you going to derive from building this IKEA product until you suffer from it? How much enjoyment are you going to experience from driving this car with this sound of the door closing, and so on? We can now create a world where not only people have better experiences, they also get exactly what we want. And this is the world I'm promoting. Thank you.